Good afternoon, everybody. This is Loretta Zita from HRAI, the Director of Marketing and Communications. I want to thank everybody for attending our event today, and I truly appreciate Glenn joining us. I just want to go over a few housekeeping issues first. Before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that we are on. We have everybody mute so that we can reduce the background noise. I'd also like to mention to use the chat button. If you run into any technical issues, I'd be happy to answer any issues that you're facing. Use the Q&A for questions for Glenn, and we will address all of those questions at the end of the session. And I want to let everyone know that we are recording this session, so if you want to listen to it or send it to colleagues, feel free to do so, and there will be instructions afterwards on this. Now let's introduce our guest speaker. Glenn Mellor of ClimateCare is joining us today. Glenn is a lifelong plumbing and HVAC professional with a passion to instruct energetic, motivated people on how to be successful in the HVAC industry. Throughout his career, Glenn has held positions as project manager, territory manager, sales manager, and manufacturer sales rep, where he earned the Lennox Diamond L Award for top performer in Canada. With that said, Glenn, could you take the floor now?
Absolutely. Thanks, Loretta. I appreciate that introduction. First of all, welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're located within our fine country of Canada. I'm really honored to be asked to be here and honored to present to people. I'm looking at the list of people that have registered, and we have people from the UK, from Turkey, we have government people. Dave Alma, welcome from the UK. The contractor likes of people like Renee Taylor from Buttons, Peter Messenger. Peter, I knew your dad, I knew you. I'm looking forward to meeting your next generation of people. Max Zubrick, Dan White from Riddle Contracting. These are all people that I would say that have done a lot for the industry, and a lot of the education that I have over the last 45 years has been collected from people like yourselves. So welcome and thank you, and again, I'm honored to be here. Just before we get started, there's a couple of things I'd like to mention. Number one is I have a lot of information I feel that's worthwhile to share with you. But I also realize that you have years and years of experience as well. So if there's a statement that I say and you don't agree with it, just have a pen and paper in front of you. Headline the pen and paper with horsepucky. Horsepucky is anything that you don't believe that is accurate or there's a better way. And my 45 years of being in the industry has always been learning from the best and replacing the better. So if you've got something better than what I have and it's the best, then I would certainly appreciate learning from you. So with that being said, we will get into the presentation here, and I hope you enjoy it. So sit back, relax, pen and paper in hand, calculator maybe by the side. You've got your financials, that's even better. So we're going to start talking about why we're here. So this is the first of a three-part mini-series. This particular piece is called A Welcome to a Checkup from the Neck Up. It's really taking a look at what you're currently doing now and is there ways of improving that. And if you're currently doing the best you can be doing, then at least this is a checkup to be able to measure yourself against the industry itself. So let's move forward with that. As Loretta introduced me, I have been in the industry for 45 years. I have had the luxury of training thousands of students. I continue to train students and coach businesses and business owners throughout the industry. I currently have about 35 business owners that I am coaching at the present time in one fashion or another. And my goal is really to prepare the next generation of HVAC professionals, not only for ClimateCare, but for the industry itself. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention something about ClimateCare. So I just want to explain to you why I'm here today, number one, and number two, what ClimateCare is all about. So it's really about helping contractors make more money, have more fun. I mean, your job is stressful enough, but we want to implement fun back into our lives. And we want to prepare our businesses for the highest possible report upon our exit strategy. I'd like to share with you my belief. My belief is that we do not sell furnaces or air conditioners. We're not out there doing service calls and maintenances and indoor air quality and all that type of thing. That's not what we're promoting and not what we're selling. What we do sell is a customer experience. And if you find yourself competing on price, I think it's important to take a look in the mirror and see what type of customer experience you're delivering. I kind of liken it to being in school. You know, we all spend at least 10 years, some of us 20 years in school, professional students a lifetime. But if I asked you to think about your school teachers over your lifetime, you could probably think of two right off the bat. One's going to be the worst teacher that you had, and the other, for a number of reasons, is going to be the best teacher you ever had. And if you were to rate them on a priority price scale, you would probably say, I wouldn't pay the worst one a dime. I would pay the best one double what they're currently earning. And all the rest kind of fit in the middle. They're just competing on a commodity. So that's how I look at our businesses too. If all we're doing is mediocrity and delivering mediocrity when it comes to customer experience, we really have nothing to compete on other than price. But if we're delivering a high quality customer experience, you're going to find yourself separating yourself from the competition. Makes sense? I hope so. So when I talk about the checkup from the neck up, what I would like to say to you today, and my commitment to you, is if you walk away from today's session with at least a couple of aha moments, maybe 3 aha moments, hopefully more than one, then and only then will the time that we spent together has been successful. So let's sit back and relax, and we'll get started into the meat and potatoes. Today's agenda, we're going to start off with begin with the end in mind. We're going to look at the guiding principles of owning a business. We're going to understand the success and failure of a company based on its efficiency rating. We're going to be establishing, in the end, we're going to establish a budget, which you'll have a roadmap in which to be able to determine where you are today and where you want to go. And you know, when I visit clients for the first time, I often ask, can I see your budget for the upcoming year? Less than 50% of HVAC companies under $3 million have a written budget. That's disappointing because you really don't have any way of knowing where you're at, if and when you're going to get to where you want to go. And unfortunately, you probably don't have a lot to celebrate throughout the year. We've got to add that fun back into it. And lastly, we're going to close off today's session with a Q&A. So when we talk about the begin with the end in mind, the first thing I ask my clients is, when do you start planning for your exit strategy? Or actually, that's a question that they ask me. And my short answer to that is, the day you open your business is the day you start planning your exit strategy. I get asked then, is it too late? No, it's not too late, but I can tell you it's going to take you at least 5 years to put your company in a position where it is going to be saleable at the highest return on your investment. You know, no one likes to buy a business that's been worn out. I liken it to a house or a car. If it's tired, it needs renovations, you're going to get the minimal amount of return on your investment. What we want to do is have that business operating at key performance and making it attractive to several buyers, not just one. The other thing we need to determine is, how are you planning on exiting? Are you planning on selling it? Are you planning on closing the doors? Are you planning on turning it over to an employee or a child? I do lots of family transitions and transition planning. But we need to understand that, and you need to put a timeline to it. How long is it going to take you to get the money you require to change your employment, whether it be retirement or whether it be entering into a new career? How long is it going to take you, and what do you need to do that? Those are determining factors that you need to understand today, the day you open your door, if not sooner. I kind of liken it to, and we all took or didn't take the advice of our parents. When should you start putting money in your RSP? When you're old enough to do so, 16 years of age, 17 years of age. How many people do it? About a third. How many people prepare an exit strategy for their business? About a third. So something to think about. Then the next question I ask themselves is when they start a business and they've got entrepreneurship, did you buy yourself a business or did you buy yourself a job? Determining factor here is how much you're involved in the business itself. And are you a leader or an employee? And many times I find out that you're an employee and rather a grossly underpaid employee. So we want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in that position. Now, I have a definition of a business. I will share it with you. You may have a different definition, but a business itself is a tool to make money. Simply put, it's a way of making money as a machine, and as a machine, it must be oiled and maintained and kept in top performance conditions. The wealth itself will not come, your wealth itself will not come from the business itself, but rather what you do with the money that it creates. I rarely found a business owner that can say that the business itself generated my wealth. It's what I did with the cash on hand, the unrestricted cash, that created my wealth, be it into real estate, be it into investments of other natures, being into buying into the stock market or a family cottage. Those types of things are going to be what leaves a legacy of wealth behind. The business itself is just a tool to get you there. So when I talk about that and talk about managing a business versus working in the business or strapping on the tool belt, the first question that comes to my mind and should be to yours, how long can you be away from the job before it suffers, the business itself? Can you be away a day? Perhaps a week when you go on holiday, or a month? The top performers will be able to leave their business easily for a month before they need to come back and tune it up. So the question I ask is, are you planning on working on the business and owning a job, or on the business and owning a business, or in the business and owning a job? Real good thought pattern there that goes along with that. I often talk to business owners that still strap on a tool belt, and if that's what floats your boat, go for it. But you're not spending time on the business, you're letting your business be run by other people. It often also tends to be your getaway from making decisions and get away from dealing with confrontations. The other thing that I'd like to point out is an owner that's working on their business 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, will not attract the buyers that you're looking for. The buyers that you're going to be attracting are people that are just like you, that are going to just work the business and just buy themselves a job. There's very low value in that on the resale market. It's tough enough now to sell a business in the HVAC arena, or any business for that matter. The thoughts of having a business, a $2 million business, and selling it for $1 million, surprise, that doesn't happen. I do business assessments on a regular basis. We used to see 3 to 5 times EBIT, or EBITDA, which is earning before interest and taxes. So if you were driving 200,000 or 300,000 at the end of the year, you could get maybe 600 to 750,000. Now business owners, our business people that are buying our HVAC businesses, are looking on a percentage of revenue basis. So it's not uncommon to sell $1 million business for $150,000. I've sold $2 million businesses for less than $300,000. So it's not necessarily going to be our means to retire. So we need to start planning that exit strategy now. I'd like to talk to you about some guiding principles. These are things that really is the emphasis on the checkup from the neck up. When I talk about business principles, there's 5 things that successful business owners focus on every single day. They look at their cash spread, their cash on hand, their overheads, the revenue growth, key performance indicators, performance measures. Do you have things in place that are measuring the performance? It's kind of like a gas gauge or a scorecard if you're playing golf. It gives you the opportunity to measure against the benchmarks created by other companies. And daily report cards. Daily report cards be something as simple as a timesheet. And does that timesheet accomplish the key performance indicators to get you to your goals? And the 5th, but most important, when owning a business, is to take care of your health. Now, we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but if you're not healthy, the business won't be healthy and everyone's going to be stressed out. So make that a priority. We'll start off with cash spread. There's a couple of things that people don't understand, and that's cash spread versus cash on hand. Cash spread, we take our cash on hand. That's the money in the bank that we have right now. And then we add our accounts receivable. Now, this is true accounts receivable. What I mean by that is anything less than 60 days. First of all, an HVAC residential company, in my mind, should have near 0 accounts receivable. There is no reason why we can't be collecting cash or payment at time of the repair, time of maintenance, or at the conclusion of a installation. So accounts receivable, anything less than 60 days gets added to our cash on hand. And then we subtract our monthly operational expenses. That would be a combination of your overheads, which is your heat, hydro, water, administration staff, trucks, gasoline, insurance, all those things that are fixed costs that aren't going to go away regardless of how much revenue you have coming in or going out. And that equals our cash spread. So cash on hand plus accounts receivable minus monthly operation expense equals our cash spread. We want to look at that every single day. It's not a hard calculation. We want to adjust our processes wherever necessary. It's not uncommon for companies in January, February, March to go into the month with a negative cash spread. New companies will be in negative cash spreads quite often for maybe 3 to 5 years. It may take that long before we get our debt to equity ratio straightened out to where we're going to have some unrestricted funds to set aside. How many months do you have set aside today? How are you going to be that company? And when I talk about being that company, I'm talking about, I said to you earlier about delivering a very good customer experience. Well, we also have another customer that we forget about, and we take for granted that we're their customer. And really what we are is partners. We're vendor partners. So like I said about, school teachers, the last 10 you've had, and who's the worst and who's the best. Suppliers, vendor partners can tell you those same things. And, if you want support from a vendor partner, one of the KPIs for them is paying on time. They work on narrow margins. They're trying to help you as best they can. They have a lot of labor in there to support you. And the key thing that they're looking at is for customers paying on time. Good example of that was I was over listening to coaches, sports coaches, and the one sports coach had room for about one more student, if you will. And there was about 7 or 8 children that parents had applied for that position. And I overheard the one coach together as they were reviewing the list. I don't know who it was, and I don't really care. But the coach pointed to the other coach's list and said, I'd pick that one there. They pay their bills on time every time. So in order to be that company, we need to understand our cash spread so that we can pay our bills on time every time. You'll be surprised at what doors that will open to you. You will be surprised how quickly that runs to the industry as being that company. As an example of cash spread, I'm going to tell you in this particular situation, and I'm not used to a monologue. I apologize. I'm used to interactive. So pretend that I am questioning you, or pretend that this is your company, if you will, for me. I have $40,000 in the bank, plus I have $20,000 in good quality accounts receivable. So I have $60,000. My operating expense is my overhead plus my accounts payable. My overhead is $40,000 a month, and my AP at this particular month is $21,000. So I have $61,000 to subtract from my $60,000. My current cash spread is $1,000. So I'm not minus $1,000. So I'm not contributing to my cash on hand. I'm not contributing to my unrestricted cash that I can use elsewhere. And that's something that you want to focus on. I hope I'm going slow enough because I'm getting a little bit deep in the woods here for you, but certainly a question and answer period will give me the opportunity to understand more about my tempo and my speed. So let's look at cash on hand now. And an example is COVID-19. A lot of companies suffered during the first 60 to 90 days. Many went out of business. Many had to borrow the $40,000. Many had to go deeply into their line of credit, and many had to refinance in general. How did that happen? We didn't know what our cash on hand is. So if I have $40,000 in unrestricted funds and my annual overhead is $480,000, so if I should have pointed out here, if you follow all the different charts I'm using, you'll see that this company is very consistent in its numbers. I did that partly for simplicity, but the byproduct is it looks like a real company when it all gets rolled out. So my annual overhead, $40,000 a month times 12 months, $480,000. I divide my $480,000 in overhead by 365 days, and that equals $1,350, $15. I divide my $40,000 cash by $1,315, and I find out that I have 31 days of cash. That's my 31 days of cash on hand. Your goal is between 90 and 120 days of cash on hand. That's what the bank is looking for. That's going to allow you to pay your bills on time, every time, meet payroll, meet all your deductions, and help you sleep at night. That's kind of important too, part of looking after yourself. Now, when we step into overheads, one of the other questions I ask business owners, do they know their break-even point? Many do not. They want to know how, and they want to know how it affects them. So I go into the explanation. What we do is we total up all our monthly expenses. Take a spreadsheet, take your P&L, look at everything that is a fixed expense, what we call below the line, below the revenue. Divide that overhead by running gross profit. This will tell you when your bills are covered for the month. So as an example of that, I've got a heat, hydro, rent, trucks, etc., running at about $42,000 a month. That's my fixed overheads that aren't going to go away regardless of my income. Your run rate for gross profit is 40%. If we take our $42,000 in expenses divided by 40% gross profit, we're going to come up with $105,000 in break-even revenue. We require our first $105,000 in revenue for the month to break even, to pay our overheads, to pay our bills. After that, we can start creating unrestricted cash. As a side note to this, many financial advisors agree that you're not an owner of a business until such time that your business is generating more than $1.2 million in revenue. Until then, you own your job. And that's okay. That's how we all start. But we need to understand that we can't keep that pace up. We need to grow that revenue if we're going to own a business versus own a job. And if you do the metrics, you'll see that it's very hard to create unrestricted cash. What you're doing is creating a wage for everyone. But the business itself is not creating unrestricted cash. The next thing we need to do is manage our revenue. We need to look at our revenue target every day. Is our revenue target set up that it's going to be able to deliver enough gross margin dollars to cover our overheads? And will you cover your overheads by the 10th business day of the month? You know, there's really only the only difference between months is we either have 19 days, 20 days, or 21 days in working days in a month. So what our goal needs to be is to cover our overheads halfway through the month. And if we're not meeting our overheads halfway through the month, wouldn't it be nice to know that and adjust where necessary? You know, my goal, the goal of everything I talk to my clients about is to make sure that they are constantly hitting their targets every single month. That's what we need to focus on. How do we know if we're hitting targets every month? We have to have performance measures in place. And do you have metrics in place? Now, if you were to go to a course, Nexstar, Contractor Success Group, ISL, go back in the day, Todd Lilly's, all of these people will preach that there's about 80 metrics that we need to measure. I agree, but I also say horsepucky. I believe if you knew 15 of the majority of the metrics and monitored those and measured those every week, every month, we can be in a position that I call predictable business. Predictable business meaning by the 10th of every month, I know the outcome of my year or of my month. And by the 10th of every month, with a good solid budget and performance metrics in place, I will know the outcome of my year as early as the first quarter of that fiscal year. I don't know about you, but I certainly hate waiting for my books to come back from my account to see if I made money or lost money. I'd like to go and take those books in knowing how much I made and how much tax I'm going to pay. With those metrics being in place, if they're not being met, you can adjust things on the fly. And I say next session here on my slide because session 2 is everything you need to know about your business and be able to recite off the top of your head to anyone you run into on the street if they should ask you those questions. We're going to spend an entire 45-minute session peeling back the onion a layer or two to understand what those metrics would be. And please appreciate, and I'm sure you do, in the 45 minutes of time that we have, we're really just pulling back the layer of the onion 1 or 2 layers thick. There's lots more layers, but I wanted to give you an overview of what you should know today that's going to affect your business tomorrow. So when it comes to daily performance, I have daily do or dies that I create for my clients. Are your report cards being turned in by end of day? And are those report cards meeting your goals? If they're not meeting your goals today, your goals weren't met, what do we need to do for the balance of the week to adjust those goals to make sure by end of week we've accomplished those goals? And finally, take care of yourself. Consider yourself the key to the business. You're the key to financial lives of others, managing the financial lives of others. And you may or may not think about it this way, but I certainly was taught this way. If I have 10 employees, there's potential for me to have 10 families that I'm responsible for. And if you take the national average of 2.3 children per family, you've got approximately 4.3 people now that you're responsible for. So that 10 now is turned into 43. Now, each of those children go to skating lessons, horseback riding, tennis lessons, play soccer. And those coaches are affected whether those kids can participate or not participate. So as you can see, as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, we have the responsibility of many, many lives. We also have responsibilities to our business, the health of our business. We also have responsibility to our personal successes. So without your health, without getting the proper amount of sleep, the proper nutrition, the proper exercise, look at everybody in COVID, the COVID spread. But we need to refocus on that and get ourselves in top performance. Okay, this is something that's near and dear to my heart. I hope creates a couple of aha moments for you. It's called the efficiency rating. It's a measurement to determine how much time you actually collect revenue versus how much time you're paying out labor and material costs. As an example for this, I'm going to talk about when someone builds a budget, a retail store, Sears as an example, they build a budget based on 365 days of revenue, and they're hitting those targets, and yet at the end of the year, they fall short. They fall short because they didn't calculate their efficiency rating. If you're a store or a business like ourselves, we're open for Monday to Friday, 52 weeks a year. We're open approximately 260 days a year. So our efficiency rate for our business would be 260 divided by 365, or 71% efficiency rate. Now, I want to make sure that we understand this. So if I was to set up a target of over 365 days, the best I could do is achieve 71% of my target. So without knowing that efficiency rate, we could potentially set ourselves up for failure. Again, Sears was a prime example. They took a long time to understand their efficiency rating. They didn't actually grasp it until about 11, 12 years ago, when something called operations accountability was brought in. And some of you may have taken that course. And it really talked about efficiencies and you know, how much time do you have to earn revenue versus how much time you're spending to pay for those hours to earn revenue. And I'll get a little deeper in the weeds here. This is something I felt I needed to share with you as an aha moment for today. So I budget for 260 days. Well, I've worked with many companies that have failed based on this attitude. And the reason for it is that they don't know their ER, their efficiency rating. I've had companies that have built their entire plan based on 260 days of gross margin contribution per day, building their pricing model around it, and then coming to halfway through the year or the end of the year, because now they've taken their eyes off the road and they're working in their business instead of on their business. And at year end, they wake up and go, I didn't make any money. So let's take a look at how we do create our efficiency rating for our install departments, for our service departments, for our maintenance departments. If you have 260 days to achieve revenue goals and you track on target, you will fail. You will fail because you don't actually have those 260 days full. Your efficiency rating kicks in, and I've seen efficiency ratings range from 85% down to 50%. COVID saw lots of 50% efficiency ratings, and you may still be experiencing that, but don't understand how it affects your business. If you don't know your efficiency rating, you will not meet your financial metrics. You won't meet it on your installs. You'll be trying to figure out where it went wrong. Your service calls, you're going to start thinking that the service technicians are not doing the proper job. Maintenance visits, you're going to be not accounting for accruing enough revenue on them. I call it buying for $1 and selling for 99 cents. If you don't know what your efficiency rating is, that's potentially what could be happening to your businesses. And unfortunately, when you get into a situation of buying for $1 and selling for 99 cents, and trust me, I've gone into businesses that have ran for 20 years, buying for $1 and selling for as low as 89 cents. They keep putting more and more family money back into the business. I say when you're doing that, take a penny out of every $1 and put it towards your funeral, because that business is going to fail and it's going to die. It's just a matter of time trying to figure out when that's going to happen. You're either going to run out of money or you're going to run out of ambition. You're going to feel like you're walking in a swamp up to your waist. The only thing I'll say about maintenance visits, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about recurring revenue in another session. Maintenance plans could and should be under the line and billed to marketing as an overhead. Those maintenance plans could and should be our opportunity to get paid a little bit of money to go into our house and sell lots of product. That's a discussion for another day. Let's focus on today. So if I start looking at my revenue in my efficiencies, and we start with 260 days. I have my clients go through an exercise and they feed me these numbers. This is an average of the numbers that I get fed by those clients. If we start with 260 days and we subtract the average Canadian stat holidays going from, PEI to BC, our average Canadian holidays would be about 10. If we look at the number of slow days in a year, we could look at as many as 40. Slow days being the phone's not ringing, the weather's 21 degrees, there's no need for our products or services, could be economic times, it could be a number of things. But about 40 days out of that 260 we lose due to the fact that there's no work to do. And then we have our lost days, which is due to weather, illnesses, vacations, etc., for about 10 days. So if we had our budget built on 260 and I said to you, you will fail, it's because our number of revenue generating days out of those 260 days drops down to 200. Our efficiency rating for our revenue opportunity is about 77% of our goal. So again, we build our budget based on 260 days. We're meeting target for the majority of the time, and then we come up short. And that's because we miss out on 33 or 23 days, 23% of the time is not generating revenue. It's unapplied time. So I'll give you an example. If we'll talk about administrative staff here now. And no, I'm not advocating lowering or raising wages. I'm just getting us to understand. So we pay 8 hours a day for 260 days. Works out to a wage or hours paid of 2,080 hours. Now our potential revenue hours is 2,080 times 77%, which is actually 1,560 hours out of our year that we're actually open and ready for revenue. Remember this when you calculate your revenue per hour. So when we're looking at our overheads and our revenues per hour, our cost overheads per hour, remember that it's 77% of the time we have to build those dollars for 100% of the time. So we need to uncover the balance between revenue and wages paid out. And this is what affects our pricing. So often I've been in this industry long enough to know that 15 years ago, $45 an hour for a service call, and people thought they were charging too much. 10 years ago, owners were charging themselves out at $85 an hour and thinking they were making a fortune. I'm going to kill that myth in the next couple of comments, next couple of slides. When we look at install as an example, we will receive revenue for 7 hours a day times 200 days. 7 hours a day because there is at least 1 hour of lost time, maybe 2 hours of lost time, travel time, getting the truck loaded, unloading the truck, waiting at the counter, whatever it might be. I'm being generous at 7 hours. Over those 200 days is 1,400 hours of productive hours. Our efficiency rating, because we're paying them for 2,080 hours, is 1,400 divided by 2,080 hours. So they're out working, collecting revenue for 1,400 hours, but we're paying them for 52 weeks times 5 times 40 hours is 2,080 hours. Our effective rate or efficiency rate is 67%. So let's just kind of role play that into, and these numbers may be low, but I kept them simple for easy understanding. It wasn't that long ago we assumed our cost per crew hour for an install was $50 an hour. If we look at that $50 per hour times 2,080 hours, because that's what we're paying out, we're paying a crew $104,000 in salaries. This is unburdened. This is before benefits, before taxes, all that kind of stuff. So this is raw hourly wages. You could add about 34% on top of this if you wanted to figure out the burden cost of that crew. So our true cost per crew hour, we'd have to take the $104,000 in salaries and divide it by the hours that they're creating revenue, or on site, if you will, and comes up to $74.25 an hour. That's a 50% increase in what you thought your cost per crew hour is. Does that make you rethink how you're pricing jobs? We're going to talk about the day-and-a-half job right now. This is also a side note. This is something that I didn't understand probably until 10, 12 years ago. There is no such thing as a day-and-a-half job. You know, I listen to salespeople, comfort advisors. Hopefully I'm not offending anybody on the call, but here's how they price it. Well, we sell a furnace and air conditioner for $6,000 installed, but it's going to take another half a day. Well, the crew hours is $50 an hour times 4 hours. That's an extra $200. I'll mark it up to $400. So now we charge $6,400 for a day-and-a-half job. And then at the end of the year, you go, I didn't make any money in my install department. Well, our pricing typically is based on gross margin contribution per day per crew. So if we're expecting to make $2,000 per crew day, $2,000 of gross profit to go towards our overheads per crew, and we lose the next day, we've lost $2,000 in gross margin dollar contribution. What we've done is we've recovered 200, and it's cost us 200. We've lost $2,000 in gross margin dollar. And I don't care if your cost per crew day is 1,500 or 2,500. The point is you've lost an entire day every time a job goes into a day and a half. Get the job done in the first day if it's a one-day install. One-day install to me, furnace, AC, water heater, no problem. So if we do not, if we add in labor only, we're going to lose those contribution dollars. So I've explained an example to you there. Kills companies, literally day-and-a-half jobs literally kills companies. You got 200 install days a year, and you're only doing you're doing day-and-a-half jobs. You've lost 50 days out of the year times $2,000 in gross margin dollars. It's $100,000 in gross margin. That's profit. $100,000 profit you've lost by doing day-and-a-half jobs and not pricing accordingly. If you want to do a day-and-a-half job, we're going to be adding half of the $2,000 gross margin on top of our cost and on top of our margin. So $200 cost, margined up to $400 plus $1,000 in gross margin dollars. That extra half day should be billed out at $1,400. I really get in deep discussions with comfort advisors, and I have a bunch of them that I deal with every day. A lot of them get it now. Here's a bugaboo. Here's the one that can really kill you is service. We pay our service technicians 8 hours a day for 260 days. That's a no-brainer. It's our same 2,080 hours. And if we're really good, we're going to receive revenue for 6 hours a day out of 200 days. So we're paying them for 2,080 hours. We're collecting revenue for 1,200 hours. That's a 58% efficiency rating. If we assume that we're paying $30 an hour per tech times 2,000 hours, 2,080 hours, we're paying out $62,400 in non-burden labor. Our true costs per technician based on 62.4 a year over those 1,200 hours is $52 per hour. Again, almost double what we build into our costing. If that doesn't make you think. You know, there's a saying about you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And instructors say you can lead a person to knowledge, but you can't make them think. I don't believe that. If you lead a person to knowledge, you're going to make them think. The outcome may be not a positive one. It may be they think it's not worth implementing, or I'm not going to do anything about it, or I don't believe it. So we can lead a person to knowledge, and they are going to think. Just might not be the right decision, the conclusion that they come up with. So let's talk about a guy, I mentioned about guiding principles. So I'm going to get into some guiding principles here. Service charge out rate. This is one that I get into discussion with many, many times. And I've had people tell me that their cost per hour to send a truck out is anywhere from $65 to $205 an hour. Somewhere in between is the right answer. I can certainly tell you it's not 65. If it's 205, you're probably not managing your business well, and we really need to have a look at that. So clients will say to me, we charge $125 an hour. We can't seem to make any money. And yet we feel like we're higher priced than everybody else. And you know what? My admin cost for service kills me. I've got dispatchers. I've got people ordering parts, 2 people on the phones all day long ordering parts. I've got a truck running around picking up parts. I've got callbacks that I'm going back to because we didn't have the parts. I've got callbacks that we're going back to because we didn't diagnose properly. I got callbacks we're going back to because we were so darn busy. We just got in there and got it fixed and we never followed up. And so now we're going back for no charge at all. Well, guiding principle number 1. Your labor should never exceed 22% of your revenue being invoiced for that call. So if we look at $52 an hour divided by 22%, our charge out rate for that hour's worth of work would be $236. Now you can say that you can't charge $236, or how do I accomplish that? You can accomplish that. You need to get rid of the paradigm of material and labor, time and material job quoting. Get yourself on a good quality, industry standard flat rate pricing system. It will change your world. It will reduce the number of complaints that you have coming in from your clients every single day. Guiding principle number 2, material cost on service should not exceed 13% of our revenue. So guiding principle number 3 leads into 22% labor plus 13% material equals 35% gross margin cost, leaving us a gross margin of 65%. Now our whole goal is to make money, and our whole goal really should be to make double-digit profits. There's no shame in that. We have companies that make 20 to 22% EBITDA. That's where you should be. If you look at our cost overhead for services as high as 50, without having a gross margin of 65%, you're only at 15% EBITDA at best. So if you think that 45% gross margin is good enough for service, you're losing 5%. We're back to buying for $1 and selling for 99 cents. Guiding principle number 4, labor for installs should be no more than 9 to 11% of our revenue. Equipment and materials should be no more than 37%. Commissions, the great debate, should either be above the line or below the line. Not quite sure where that should lie. But if we look at it, 11% labor, 37% equipment, 48% is our cost, 52% gross margin, overhead is 30%, we're at 22% EBITDA. So let's get into the budget here. Budget is a cause for celebration. If you have no measurement for success, you have no reason to celebrate. No destination to set a roadmap, you have no idea where you're at, you have no idea where you're going. I'm going to speed up a little bit here on time. So to establish our budget, we need to look back at the last 3 years of our financials. Then we need to determine what is possible. We need to establish a monthly algorithm so we can build a monthly budget. And how we do that is we build ourselves a chart. I hope you can see this. We have January through to December across the top with a total on the right-hand column. We put in our 3 years revenue by month, we total them up, and we get a total 3-year average. Then what we do is we take, see if I can increase this here. We take our 3-year total for the month, divide it by our 3-year total for the year, and it's going to give us a percentage by month of where our revenue comes in. So each month we'll have a revenue budget, January 7%, February 5%, March 5%, so on and so forth. You get the picture there. So once you've accomplished that, now what you can do is start backwards and put your target and divide your target by these percentages, and it will build you a monthly budget, an accurate monthly budget. So for an example here, we wanted to create a new budget for January 2022, and our budget was, our percentage of revenue for the year is 7%. Our annual target we established would be $1.5 million. Our January budget would be 7% of $1.5 million. In this case, it works out to $105,000. Now, if you remember from slides before, our break-even point is $105,000. We're going to go into January with no unrestricted cash, no profit at the end of January. To determine the departmental budget, you're going to do the similar exercise just by separating your department revenues by each month. In January, as an example, we did 55% installs, 35% demand service, and 10% maintenance. To do the math, it's going to equate out to on a $105,000 budget, installs is going to be 55% of budget, or $57,500. Service 35% of budget, or $36,750, and maintenance 10% of budget, or $10,500. Now, if we know our average ticket price for our installs, and let's say it's $57,500 or $5,750, we would know that we need to do 10 installs in the course of the month. If we don't have 10 installs in the course of the month, we need to utilize that labor and do more service to make up the shortfall. So we're going to complete the same process for each of the 12 months. You're going to establish your departmental budgets for the entire year. This means now that you have a roadmap of where you were and where you're going. After you create that budget, if you want to go to an added level of success, we're going to create a daily do or die. So we're going to take that monthly budget and divide it into the number of revenue generating days. Now, in January, it may be 20 days, but our efficiency rating for January might be 80%. So we would take 20 divided by 80%. We have 16 revenue generating days. We would divide the target by 16. And now we have our daily do or die. It's going to give you the revenue generated by day for that month. If you have that information very early in the game, you can adjust and you can hit targets every single year. Guiding principle number 5, be that company that knows their cash spread and applies their energy efficiency rating, my apologies, on pricing and overhead. And you're the company that meets overhead by the 10th business day of the month, and you pay your bills and you take discounts. Guiding principle number 6, celebrate often. Keep your employees engaged. Share the company goals. You know, the day of keeping all that information to yourself is long gone. You want to make sure that your employees are part of your team. You want them to understand what your expectations are. So many times I have interviewed people for the owners because the owners are frustrated with that staff person. And they'll say to me, he's got the smarts, she's got the smarts. They have the intent, they're just not accomplishing what I want. Why? When I interview them, I find out they don't have a clue what your expectation is. So by setting goals, by setting individual goals, your employees become engaged. You're going to find that that rock you're trying to push up the hill is on your own will be much, much easier when the whole team is behind you. I'd like to take this time to thank you. But wait, we have only just begun. I'd like to invite you to join me on October the 19th for more guiding principles of owning a successful HVAC company. We're going to be talking about the 15 things you should know to help you sleep better, have more fun, and make more money, and prepare your business for a sale to the highest bidder. Thank you, folks. I'm open to questions.
Hi, Glenn. It's Loretta again. I'd like to, I do have a question here for you. I've got a couple of them, if you have a few minutes.
Sure.
Okay, so we have Ron Wright is asking, how do you go about valuing a business for resale?
Guiding principles on evaluating businesses is twofold. We're going to be looking at the amount of recurring revenue. We're going to be looking at customers engaged in the last 24 months. And we're going to set a value to those customers, as an example, a maintenance plan customer has an annual revenue potential of about $1,200. We're going to build up what the company would look like and its growth, and then we would determine based on either EBITDA, or we would base it on, depending on where the company is, EBITDA performance. I've had companies that are doing $3 to $5 million, and their EBITDA is so poor, if I use that evaluation process, they'd be worth nothing. So, and on the other token, I've had so many business owners try to sell me on the concept that the potential of their business is this. Potential means diddly squat. Potential means you haven't applied yourself and got it done, so you're expecting somebody to buy your job and get it done. So then what we look at is a percentage of annual revenue. And I've seen lately as high as 63% of potential revenue being paid for a business. I've seen as low as 22%. To say that there's just a simple formula, it is a mathematical equation. And I certainly couldn't explain it all in the time that I'm allowed right now. But there is a lot of thought that goes to it.
Okay. I have another couple questions. What's the difference between cash on hand and cash in the bank?
Very good question. So cash in the bank may be allocated to an expense. Our cash on hand is going to be unrestricted funds. Those are the things that we can invest, we can do things with, we can set aside for that rainy day. We should have 3 times our overhead and our monthly operating expenses into cash on hand. But our cash spread is either going to take away or add to our cash on hand, which is cash on hand is the money that is truly mine.
Okay. How do you charge $236 an hour plus materials?
Very good question. Number one is by applying a industry standard flat rate pricing book. It takes into effect all of your efficiencies and inefficiencies. It keeps you on track to your revenue and labor portions, percentages, as well as keeping our material percentages accurate. It also takes into account that a revenue generating hour versus a paid hour, as we've come to discover, is 2 different things. So is it really $236 an hour times 8 hours? No, it's taking into account for your inefficiencies. The end goal at the end of the day, per service technician, we're looking at somewhere between $1,000 and $1,200 in revenue generation per day. If that technician's doing 4 or 5 at most service visits a day, 4 times $250, let's call it, is $1,000. It's just barely meeting our expectation for our technicians.
Okay. And what did you mean by buying for $1 and selling for 99 cents?
Yes, that one comes back all the time. What it really means, if we don't understand our true overheads, our true cost of doing business, it's not uncommon to perceive that you're making money when in fact you're losing money each and every transaction. And one of the points I like to make here is I'll identify when I'm coaching people that they have a particular problem, and it might be during the busiest time of the year, and they'll say, I don't have time to correct the problem. And my short answer is, you can't afford not to correct that problem. If I can take 2 hours to correct a problem, it's going to mean 10 times the profitability of that department over that busy time, or 10 times the lead generation, or 10 times the sales opportunities. Those are things that we're going to talk about in session number 3, when we really look at our critical performance measures.
Okay, I have one last question here. What if I'm open on Saturdays?
That's great. And many HVAC companies are. It's becoming the trend. It doesn't mean that you're working 6 days a week. It means that you have staff that's working 5 days a week, but they may work Monday to Friday, they may work Tuesday to Saturday. That definitely increases your efficiency rate and gives you 52 more opportunities to be collecting revenue. I've seen some very successful companies take advantage of that. Let's face it, that's 25% increase in potential revenue per year just by opening on Saturdays.
Okay. Well, you know what? Thank you so much, Glenn, for taking the time. And we're looking forward to October 19th. If there's any other questions in the Q&A, I will forward them on to Glenn to answer for anybody specifically. Please fill out the survey form that will come out to you later this afternoon. This is being recorded, so you can certainly listen to it again. And Glenn, any final words?
No, I just hope that everyone stays healthy and wealthy this season, and think about some of these things, implement some of these things. Reach out to me if you want. Mellors@climatecare.com. It's pretty easy to remember, and be happy to answer your questions. Again,
All right.
I'm honored to have this time with you folks.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Glenn. I really appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.